The owner of the cabin gave us exactly one rule before he left. If someone knocks tonight. He paused with his hand on the front door. Don't answer. One of my friends laughed. You expecting bears to knock now? The owner didn't smile. Unless it's me. Then he stepped outside, locked his truck, climbed in, and drove away. At the time, we thought it was just another local trying to scare tourists. None of us laughed about it later. There were 4 of us. Me, Tyler, Mason, and Chris. We'd rented the cabin for 3 nights. It sat alone at the edge of a national forest, nearly 30 minutes from the nearest town.
No neighbors.
No streetlights. No cell service. Exactly what we'd wanted. The first few hours were perfect. We grilled burgers, played cards, started a fire in the wood stove. The weather forecast had warned about heavy snow overnight, but we weren't worried. The cabin was warm, well-stocked, comfortable. Around 9 that evening, the lights flickered. The generator kicked in a few seconds later. Chris looked out the front window. Probably why he came back for it. We didn't think much about it. About 20 minutes later, someone knocked. 3 slow knocks. Not loud, not aggressive. Just knock. Knock. Knock! Tyler stood up immediately. That's probably the owner. Nobody argued. The timing made sense. He'd mentioned the generator earlier. Tyler opened the door. Standing outside was the owner. Same heavy jacket, same wool hat, same flashlight. Snow covered his shoulders. Generator shut itself off, he said. Mind if I check the basement? He sounded exactly the way he had earlier. Calm, friendly, normal. We stepped aside. He walked in, removed his gloves, walked straight to the kitchen, opened a cabinet, found a mug without asking, filled it with coffee. Chris laughed. You know this place pretty well. The owner smiled. I built most of it. Nobody questioned that. He disappeared into the basement for a few minutes. When he came back up, the lights were steady again. Should be fine now. He sat with us for another 10 minutes, talked about the weather, asked where we were from, warned us not to hike the Eastern Trail. Then he stood. I left my phone charger here yesterday. He walked into the spare bedroom, came back holding a charger, slipped it into his pocket. Have a good night. And left. Everything about him felt. If the story had ended there, I wouldn't be telling it. About 40 minutes later, someone knocked again, the exact same 3 knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Nobody moved. Tyler finally looked toward the window. Then he froze. Standing outside was the owner. Again. Only this time, he looked terrified. His flashlight shook in his hand. He wasn't trying to come inside. He wasn't even standing on the porch. He stayed several feet back, like he was afraid of the cabin itself. He spoke through the closed door, not loudly, just loud enough for us to hear. Whatever you do. A long pause. Don't let him leave. Nobody answered. Inside the cabin, every one of us slowly turned toward the living room. The man who had been drinking coffee with us was still sitting beside the stove. He didn't panic. He didn't stand up. He didn't even look surprised. He simply stared into the fire. Then he quietly said, "Don't listen to him." That was it. No explanation. No anger. Just those 4 words. Chris whispered, "What the hell is going on?" Nobody answered. Outside, the owner knocked again. 3 slow knocks, then silence. Tyler looked at me. "What do we do?" I honestly didn't know if the man outside was the real owner. Who was sitting in front of us? If the man inside was the real owner, who was standing in the snow? Mason suggested opening the curtains. The man by the stove spoke before anyone moved. I wouldn't. Nobody asked why. Something about the way he said it made all of us stop. The room became painfully quiet. Outside, the owner spoke again. "I'm not asking you to let me in." Another pause. "I'm asking you not to let him out." The words hit all of us at once. The man inside finally looked away from the fire. He wasn't angry. He wasn't nervous. He simply looked tired. Then he stood, walked into the kitchen, opened a cabinet. I always forget where you keep the sugar. He reached into the back without looking, pulled out the sugar jar, added a spoonful to his coffee. Chris stared at him. "How did you know that was there?" The man looked genuinely confused. "Because that's where it's always been." He took another sip, as though nothing unusual was happening. Outside, the knocking stopped. We waited. 5 minutes. 10. 20. Nothing. Tyler finally whispered, "Maybe he's gone." Nobody wanted to check. Hours passed. The snow became heavier. The fire began to die. Without saying a word, the man walked over, added 2 logs, watched the flames grow, then quietly said, "You should keep the fire going." Nobody responded. None of us slept. Just before sunrise, the cabin became completely silent. No wind. No knocking. Nothing. When daylight finally came, Tyler walked to the door. He looked back at us. Nobody tried to stop him. He unlocked it, opened it. The porch was empty. No footprints, no truck. Nothing. Just fresh snow. The man who had spent the night inside with us was gone too. His coffee mug still sat on the table, still warm. Around an hour later, A pickup truck climbed the snowy road. The owner stepped out. Same jacket, same hat, same truck. He smiled when he saw us. "You boys survived the storm?" Nobody answered. Chris pointed toward the cabin. "You were here last night." The owner frowned. "No." "You fixed the generator." "No." "You drank coffee with us." "No." "You told us not to let someone leave." For the first time, the owner's expression changed. Not to confusion. Recognition. He looked past us, into the cabin, at the still-burning fire. Then he quietly asked, "He kept it going?" None of us understood the question. Tyler finally said, "Who?" The owner never answered. He simply nodded to himself, turned around, walked back toward his truck. Chris shouted after him, "Who was in our cabin?" The owner stopped. Without turning around, he said, "I told you not to answer the door." Then he drove away. I've replayed that night in my head for years. I've tried to explain it. Maybe there were two men. Maybe someone was pretending. Maybe we were all too tired to think clearly. I honestly don't know. But one detail has never left me. It wasn't the knocking. It wasn't the man outside. It wasn't even the man who sat beside our fire all night. It was the owner. Because when he looked at the fire, he didn't ask who had been inside. He only wanted to know one thing, whether he had kept it burning.